Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now on the 25th of June 2024. So we've only got really a few days until the election, general election we're having here in the UK on the 4th of July. It's literally a week and 2 days, and so it's getting very close now. And I still haven't really decided what I'm doing because there's just so many conflicting things, isn't there? Basically, when you look at the kind of options we've got, first of all, you've got well, just going along and voting. But many people say that that's consenting to the system, and we shouldn't be consenting to the system at all. So that is one school of thought. Another school of thought is to go along and kind of spoil your kind of voting paper, ballot paper, and maybe by writing on "I do not consent" across the ballot paper. But as someone pointed out a little while ago, what you're doing really is consenting to then write "I don't consent." So by going along to the polling station, picking up the ballot paper, picking that up, and by sort of going to the booth and writing on it, you're essentially consenting to the system, only to write "I do not consent to the system," etc. on the ballot paper. So that kind of is self-defeating as well. And the other option, of course, is to not vote at all, to have nothing to do with it, nothing at all. But as we've seen in so many of these kind of things that have been highlighted to us by people about the way the powers that shouldn't be operate, well, the school of thought there is by doing nothing, by remaining silent, they will take that as implied consent. So we've seen that happen and seen that said, haven't we, so many times over the last few years. By doing nothing, by not speaking out, you're giving your implied consent. So how do you win really with that? Anything that you do, whether it's voting, not voting, spoiling your ballot paper, whatever it is, you're still essentially consenting to the whole thing in one way or another. So I'm a bit flummoxed as to what to do, and I must say I haven't decided yet. But having said that, now bear with me, because right at the end of this I'm going to basically kind of quote a meme I've seen recently, but for the next few minutes it's going to look like I'm really kind of in favour of Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, really sort of selling their virtues. But as you'll see from this meme at the end that I'll relate to you, that's not the case. But isn't it really, things are changing. It's kind of gone from perhaps one of the dullest election campaigns ever to one of the most entertaining campaigns ever, just simply because Farage has sort of thrown his hat into the ring and come on, and he's obviously standing for Clacton, and he could well get into Parliament along with at least a handful of Reform MPs, maybe even more than a handful of Reform MPs. And the consensus, despite that, really has been up till now how a Labour victory, and probably a Labour victory with a big majority, is a foregone conclusion, and anything else is just kind of window dressing, really. But do you know what? I'm not quite so sure now, because some of the latest figures, and yes, I know these polls, opinion polls, a lot of the time aren't worth the paper they're written on, or the sort of cyberspace they're written on, but I know that. But what some of them are saying is that Labour are starting to lose ground on their huge lead in the opinion polls. I think they've gone down by about 9, sort of, so they're sort of -9 on what they were before. The Conservatives have gone down, obviously, quite a lot more as well, but Reform have gone up by a pretty big amount as well. So is it one of those things where Farage and the Reform Party are kind of coming up on the inside rail rapidly there, and may well kind of cause an absolutely massive shock come election day or the day after election day, because that wouldn't be the first time that's happened in this country, would it? I remember kind of, 8 years ago? Cool. Can you believe it's 8 years ago now since the Brexit vote, the referendum there? It's pretty much, sort of, I think almost to the day, 8 years ago. But we saw then, kind of a month out from it, 2 weeks out from it, oh yeah, it's just a foregone conclusion that the Remain side of things are going to win. The Brexit side haven't got a hope. And it was literally only within a few days, maybe even a couple of days, that people on the Brexit side of things were starting to think, hang on a minute, it might not be such a foregone conclusion after all for Remain. And well, we all know how that one turned out. Not only did the Brexit side of things kind of catch up, but obviously pipped the others at the post, didn't they? So could that possibly happen again? I wouldn't put it past fate, or whatever you want to call it, for that to happen. It really could. And I think what might be at least pretty certain is that Labour will get in, but not with a very big majority at all. Reform could have quite a lot of MPs, and then the rest will be taken up by the Liberals and the Conservatives, etc. And well, we could sort of be looking at a hung parliament maybe, or just a very small Labour majority, which would be a lot more favourable than Labour with a big majority. If they've only got a small majority, a handful, 5 or 10 seat majority, well, they're going to be spending the next 5 years basically looking over their shoulders. What I might do, I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, and I may well change my mind on this yet, but I may well go along bearing in mind what I've just said about you consenting whatever you do in the election, even if you don't vote at all. I may well go along and do a tactical vote for Reform. I think we've got a Reform candidate in my constituency here, so I may well go and vote for them just as a purely tactical thing, because I think what we need to do at the moment, the biggest priority for us in the freedom movement, is to make sure Labour doesn't get in with a huge majority. That would be an absolute nightmare, an absolute worst case scenario. And if that does happen, you could be sure that the foot will go hard down on the accelerator for Agenda 2030, accelerating that big time. And we know that's what Starmer's all about, what the modern Labour Party are all about. And if we can just make sure that they don't get in either at all, or just with a tiny majority, which will tie their hands a little bit more, I think that is really what we need to be looking at. Like I say, I could be wrong on that. I might just get loads of comments in the comment section below saying, Tim, if you vote, do that, vote for someone, you're just an idiot. And I'm not saying that's what I'll be doing. I'll probably make a final decision only the night before or something like that, really. But I am kind of looking at that as one of the most favourite options. But like I say, I promised you that meme at the start. I'm not totally or nowhere near convinced by Farage. I know he did that ridiculous thing a few years ago where he was supporting the things that go in there. He was even saying that Tony Blair should be a jab czar in charge of the rollout. So he's by no means perfect, by no means an ideal person. And so I do realise that, but and as this meme actually says, well, it's actually showing Sunak, Starmer and Farage, all three of them, and then there's a little bit of writing below each one, and it started off with Sunak and it said, "My job is to completely destroy the Conservative Party and remove them from British politics forever." And then it had then it had Farage, and under him was written, "My job is to give you false hope and to provide a distraction." And then it had Starmer, and that said something like, under him, "My job is to bring in a totally dystopian future, Agenda 2030, and all that sort of horrendousness," or words to that effect anyway. I wish I could have found that meme where I saw it, but I haven't been able to find it. So if you can see it, do send it to me and I'll post it. But that's pretty much what it said. And yeah, I'm under no illusions that Farage is just a distraction. And even if he did get in with a majority, a working majority, I doubt he'll sort of stick to many of his pledges that he's put out in that contract thing. I doubt it very much at all. And how soon will it be until he's sort of kind of doing visits to the Ukraine, visits to here, visits to there, and doing all of the that kind of usual sort of globalist nonsense. He'll probably turn out to be as big a disappointment as Milei in Argentina and people like that, won't he? And but I do sort of think he will slow down. If not stop, he'll slow down Agenda 2030. Instead of it coming in over the next 5 years like it would with Labour, it might not come in for sort of 10 years or something, which would buy us 5 years of time, basically, wouldn't it? So that is my thoughts on that. I've kind of rambled on here a little bit, so I'll leave it and I'll be back soon. Tim from Fair Play Now, thanks for watching.